Hi, everyone. It is so nice to meet you and get to see everybody today. My name is Jen T with Aringo, and we are going to be talking about your MBA applications and how to go from zero to hero today. So, as we get started, we'd love to have you take a few minutes just to like and subscribe to our channel. And can't wait to talk to you a little bit more about our amazing presentation today. Okay, so we'll wait just a few minutes to see if there's anybody else who's going to join, but a couple of housekeeping moments. You can always join in the conversation by posting your comments, and you can join the chat and I will answer them as we go. And then if you have any other questions beyond our presentation today, my contact information is here. I'll share it at the end of the presentation as well, but excited to be here today. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So just from the top, my name is Jen T, and I'm with Aringo. I'm the CEO. We have been around for about 20 years, and we are here today to talk about going from zero to hero and how to make you stand out in your MBA application. And so we'll talk about a couple of different parts. To give you a little bit more of a perspective on Aringo, we started about 20 years ago, and we help candidates with their applications by giving them chances estimations. We talk about your school selection, how to plan out your projects. So how to map out your timeline for applying to top MBA programs. And then we also help with coming up with a strategy and deciding what stories are going to be best to work with your application. And we have helped over 4,000 people get into top MBA programs across the globe, US, UK, Europe, Asia, everywhere. And so you can go on our website and check out our statistics if you have any questions or are interested in learning more. All right, so for our agenda today, we're going to talk about first, what are admissions committees looking for in an application, and then we'll dive in how you can stand out, talking about your background, your academic experience, anything you do in your spare time, extracurriculars, any type of leadership that you can share, and then any other areas. So there's definitely some gray space, like where you could definitely shine in your application. And then from there, we'll talk about where you want to put that information and where you want to share it. So whether that's going to be in your resume, your essays, your recommendation letters, or even in the interview. Okay, so first, MBA admissions committees are going to be looking for your academic aptitude by your GMAT or your GRE or executive assessment, whatever exam you decide to take. Or if you're looking for a waiver, that's an option too. They're going to be looking at your GPA. So how did you do in your undergrad studies? And so obviously the higher, the better as far as like class rank, GPA, whether you were in first division, second division, honors, any of that. That's something they're going to be looking for. They're going to be looking and reading your stories through your essays. Your resume helps them with seeing what you have accomplished thus far, so they can see your career progression, your academic progression, and really get to know a little bit about you. Recommendation letters are going to be helping them with learning about how you've done compared to your peers in your different roles and your readiness for an MBA program and the next step in your career. And then your short answers in your interview are going to give them those deeper insights into who you are. Now, a lot of the times, what's not written or asked 100% of the time is, what is your career vision? What are you wanting to do next? And, what are your goals? What do you want to do? And then why do you need an MBA to get there? And then, is this the right school for you? So from there, we'll talk about what makes you stand out. So and this is a great opportunity for you guys to kind of chime in and ask any questions, share something personal about you, or, if you feel like you maybe want to know if something that you have done might be something unique to help you stand out. But a couple of things that I realize a lot of people forget to share is, that they grew up in a family business and that they had not, like you grew up, sweeping the floors, or you talked about business at the dinner table. That's always something really exciting to an admissions committee, because not only have you been part of this business and kind of gain this exposure, but you also have a vested interest in the success of the company. So, people are afraid that it's not that big of a deal. It's just, my family owns a grocery store. Well, that does mean a lot. You've got supply chain, you have customer service, you have so many different components that you might be not thinking about and minimalizing whenever you're not mentioning that with the admissions committee. So another one would be your educational experience. I have a lot of candidates that forget to mention if they've studied abroad, or they had a specific certificate, or they took a deep dive in some sort of curriculum that's a little bit different from most people's educational experience. So you want to share that. Work experience is, internships are a little bit tricky when it comes to MBA applications, because you don't necessarily want to talk so much about internships because they're looking more at your post-grad experience. But let's say that I had a couple of clients that had interned at TikTok or Facebook. And I mean, wow, those are great brand names, and you want to be able to leverage that. So there's definitely a way to incorporate that somewhere on your application so that they can see it. Extracurriculars is something that also is just a really cool place for you to be able to share, what you're excited about, what you're passionate about. And sometimes it either showcases your leadership, involvement, teamwork, and other times it can also show your passion and connect to your career goals. And so we can always talk about that a little bit more as we kind of dive in. And then any other leadership that you've had and any other areas that you might want to share with the admissions committee. Okay, so we do have one comment so far. I have an undergrad degree, a bachelor in commerce with honors, and a postgrad diploma. How would my GPA be assessed? Would only be based on undergrad GPA. So they take them both into account. So if you have a graduate degree or a PGD, they will be able to look at both of those GPAs and be able to make their own calculations. So behind the scenes, when you submit your application to an MBA program, it technically will go over to the graduate school, and the graduate school does their sort of calculations and they overall GPA. Don't worry too much about that, because when the application gets sent over to an MBA admissions committee, they have somebody in-house who's going to take all of the data from your application and put it into their own formula. They do this on many different levels. One, so that they're judging everybody by the same criteria and the same weightage per section. Plus, they're also going to be using this data later on when it comes to reporting information to ranking organizations as well. So just know that there's definitely going to be a formulation that they're going to use of their own. And so both of those GPAs are strong. In the end, I don't know if one would bring the other up, so to say, but I think that both of them are strong, and actually having what may be a little bit of a higher GPA in your postgrad actually also helps with showing that progression and academic readiness for the program. Combining that with an average GMAT score could definitely put you in running for an interview when you combine it with a strong application. Great question. So if anybody else has more questions, please, please, please ask them. Okay, so I realized I started talking about these things before I got to the slide, but we talked a little bit about the business. family business. But I have had a lot of people who have lived in different countries and they've moved a lot, whether that's because of your parents' job, military, anything like that. You've lived in different countries or different states. That's a transition. And so you've been able to, get to know the culture, adapt, and be able to communicate across those different cultures. And that's what you really want to share. So I've also had some Olympic athletes or candidates that went into the military themselves. So that's something really neat and unique about your personal background that you can also share. Obviously, there's leadership, competition, drive, those types of things that would definitely give you something different about your profile. So there's some other things that could factor in as far as your upbringing. Maybe you came from an ultra religious background or something that's maybe a little bit different from the norm, especially in your own country. There's a lot of examples I can kind of think of sometimes, but yeah. So anytime you can kind of think of like when you're the odd man out or somebody who's different, that's something to share that experience of like how you've navigated that difference, shared who you are, and been able to work together. Socioeconomic status. So maybe you didn't grow up with a lot of money, or maybe you did grow up with a ton of money. So, how did that change the course of your life? How did that impact your decisions? And is there anything that you feel like you might have missed out on? Or like being one of many siblings, that could be another unique factor. Like let's say that you're the oldest of the 7 siblings and you run the household. So that's just something really exciting to share with the admissions committee, or like you're a twin or a triplet, something like that can give you a great base for a story. So we can dive in a little bit more about education. I know that we talked about a lot of that already. Studying abroad, really competitive programs, specific studies that are not necessarily like the typical engineering, business, finance, aren't that typical, like ecology, or maybe you started out as a teacher, or maybe you still are a teacher and work in education. There's a lot of really cool moments within the application where you can show this experience and articulate to the committee how things are a little bit different in the way that you've experienced work, life, or even academics themselves. Another one would be maybe you worked throughout college, and then sometimes this could impact your GPA. And so, that's also another way to kind of share some color to your experience. If you were a college athlete or competitor, so maybe you were the head of the chess team, it doesn't always have to be that you were football or cricket or anything like that. It could definitely be, we've had a couple of singing competition winners that were able to utilize that as a great source for writing stories, talking about leadership and growth. Another part that some candidates have also gone through is venture challenges, right? Like, so let's say that you've always had this knack for entrepreneurship and it's something that's driven you, and you and your friends got together and created a business and you won a challenge, or even you competed in a challenge. It doesn't have to be that you actually won everything, but it's more of the path and the experience you had while you were doing these things. Okay, Big Mike, you have some questions. I have a 162 quant score on the GRE and earned a B in statistics in undergrad. I took a graduate level course that required strong critical thinking skills and earned an A. Would this help me, and how would they view my 162 quant score? So I think that a lot of this depends on the specific school itself. 162 can definitely be right in range for most schools. Adding that you took the graduate level course, and if you took it for credit, obviously in earning an A, that's something I would absolutely include in my transcripts when you upload them or report your academics in the like application form itself. So make sure you're including that. It'll be hard to, how does that factor into a GPA? But again, schools will be using this data in their own way, and they will be putting it into their own formulations. So don't worry as much about that. If your school didn't do GPA, or it was a different GPA scale, like a 10-point scale versus a 4.0 scale, and they want your 4.0 scale GPA, make it as close as you can. I wouldn't say that, like, if you got an 8 out of 10 CGPA, that you wouldn't put down a 4.0, right? You might put down like a 3.5 or something like that. As close as you can estimate. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, because they're going to do their own calculations. Again, behind the scenes, they'll do that. But like, you just don't want to misrepresent yourself. You also don't want to leave it as a null either. You don't want to leave it as a 0, because then that shows like a red flag. And then like later on, they could be like, oh, he misrepresented what his GPA could have been. And one reason or another, you get thrown to the wrong pile, whatever it might be, just try to make the best estimate that you can. Okay, so Big Mike came from a liberal arts background and earned all A's in the 2 years of my undergraduate career. Is this positive? Absolutely. And I think, like, coming from the liberal arts, it's something very different that, they're going to be interested in. And UIC actually has quite a large following, despite not being like the main school that people always think of when they think of Illinois or Chicago, but UIC has like a huge following. So I think that you're in a good spot there. Akshay has, how would we be able to offset a lower GPA? Have a 6.18 out of 10 in a BTech and a PGD in environmental and sustainable development in a 72%. So, actually, I would say that the biggest way to offset this is typically going to be your GMAT score. So if you can have a higher quantitative score, that'll definitely help you, along with the verbal score being right around the average. I think you should be in a good spot. MBA math is definitely a great way to also show your commitment to the program. So you guys are definitely bringing up some really important points. How do you demonstrate your academic readiness to an admissions committee despite maybe a lower GPA or having something a little bit of an anomaly in your background? So with that being said, some people will take MBA math, which is a course that some schools will use as part of their orientation. They'll require candidates to take MBA math before they actually start the program, because it's great exposure. The only hard part about MBA math is that you have unlimited amount of times to retake the coursework so that you can show that you completed it. And so it's not necessarily going to give you a GPA or give them the ability to see like, oh, like you worked so hard on this that, you got a grade. So that's where it's not necessarily going to help shift your GPA. It's going to show your commitment to making sure that the committee knows your readiness and excitement about the MBA program itself. The HBX core, fantastic program. I would recommend taking it for credit if you financially can commit to that and feel like you could actually get the, there's like 4 rankings, but if you could get in the top 2, that would be great. But you don't have to do it for credit. Again, I would say that there's specific schools that have specific things that they would want to see. So I've had candidates talk to like the Duke Fuqua admissions team, and they would want a class for credit. And so like something from like UC Berkeley online extension or other coursework that is actually online for a grade, that would be fantastic for them, because then they have something to help boost your GPA that goes along with their formulation of your academic score as the admissions committee looks at it. Okay. Big Mike, the grad course is included in my transcript. Perfect. That's, I would make sure that you have it there, and that's all that they need to have. That's all that you need to do. Okay. So next we have Bhavya. You have 4 years of work X, 1 year in risk consulting, 2.5 years in public policy research, 9 months in fundraising at a nonprofit, post MBA goals, join a VC impact fund. Is it going to be tough to explain these jumps in your goal? So, I'm going to help talk about this kind of vaguely in our conversation right now, but if you have something very specific that you guys want to talk about at the end of the presentation, I have a link for you guys to do a free profile evaluation. We can talk about it, go over your resume, talk about your goals, etc. as well. But what's important here is being able to talk about the transitions you've had in your career. And we'll actually go to the next slide because that will help with your work experience. So what the MBA admissions committee is looking for in your career is to see a progression. They want you to connect the dots, and you never have to exactly go in a straight line, but you can say I was really interested in XYZ, or for this moment I was really excited about risk, but found myself continuously gravitating back to the policy that was impacting my clients. And that's why I took the route of going towards public policy. And afterwards, I was able to move into fundraising in a nonprofit because I'm really passionate about X, Y, and Z. And now I know that I need to make an even bigger impact. So I want to go into impact funding, but I need the MBA, this class, this curriculum to be able to get where I want to be after I graduate from your specific school to get there. And so it's not that it's hard to show the jumps between the different experiences that you've had. It's telling them about that journey in between and what you learned from all these different experiences that make you who you are, not only for your sake, but also for the sake of your classmates. What are you going to share? Risk consulting is not the biggest, is not always one of the biggest represented areas in an MBA. Obviously not public policy either. So, you have a lot of information to share with your peers as you go through different classes and be able to share your expertise. And that's what they're looking for when they're curating a class. They want to find people with different experiences. And that's everything that we're talking about today. Okay, so Michael, if I participate in a language competition, specifically poems competition, can this be an added advantage? Absolutely. One is that it helps with, showing them your academic communication readiness for the program, but also if it's, literature, poems, art, it's another facet to who you are that lets them see, something, again, unique about you, and that you can, maybe you're really great at math, but you can also have this art side and you can combine them both. And again, be really amazing at helping your peers with learning something different throughout the program. Okay, Ganesh, respected Jennifer, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for doing this. How does industry involved in work experience play a factor in uniqueness? For example, does working for a travel technology company add value? Absolutely. So this sounds so silly, but literally, I can make anything sound interesting, and so can you. It's all about marketing, right? How do you think that working for a travel technology company can be something different and be helpful for your peers? So one is it's interesting, right? You get to know about the travel industry, the technology that goes into it. Everybody's fascinated by it in general. But then also, if it's on the tech side, depending on what you did and what your role was, then you have the ability to talk about, the different factors that go into things. In fact, like that was like a big thing with everything that's been happening with Boeing, that I believe one of the travel sites, I believe it was Kayak, actually had a toggle so that you could see or make sure that you didn't fly in a certain plane, right? Like, how is that impacting your company, your travel company? And, that's a whole case study of itself, right? Like, I think that there was one school that did a case study on Peloton and the impact that an episode of a TV show where somebody died and had a heart attack while working, or well, not died, but had a heart attack. Maybe did die. Oops. Sorry. This is getting really in depth and maybe weird, but they did a whole case study on that, like how that impacted Peloton and their brand. And so, it's definitely something interesting and something else to share about who you are and what you've experienced. And again, bring it back to that classroom conversation. Okay. So next on your crew D, how long do you suggest we spend on each application? Ooh, good question. So when we work with our clients on what we call a full school package, which is comprehensive and unlimited, and that's working one-on-one with a consultant, we imagine that our clients are going to probably spend 15 to 20 hours working with our consultant just as part of the process. So 20 to 30 hours could go in on the client side of things. So, it depends. The first school is going to be the most arduous, the most time consuming. But once you get your goals and your different marketing perspective down, then you can, go a little bit faster. But it takes time. You want to make sure you're refining those essays so that the school really sees and gets to hear your story versus all the surface level stuff that you might get from like ChatGPT. That stuff it could sound lovely, but it doesn't say anything sometimes. And so, being able to dig down into, well, why does it matter that I'm telling you that I moved between 6 different cities in high school? So, what does that really mean to the admissions committee? Well, what it means is during a very formative time, I had to get to know these different cultures, and I had to be able to navigate it and find a way to survive and make who I am and manage my personal self and my academics when it was going to be really important. Anyways, so that was a tangent, but again, like that's what we're trying to share with the committee. And so you got to take some time to write your applications and the essays. All right, Big Mike, you're back. I'm a paralegal that worked in nonprofit, PE, and banking. I'm trying to pivot into M&A consulting. Perfect. I mean, I think that you're already in a field that makes sense for that. So you just need to, again, connect the dots for the school to be able to see your journey and what you're doing next. All right. Bhavya, thank you so much. Okay, yay, excellent. Please do check out our profile evaluation. I will be posting that at the end with the link. Karen, I started my career in my family business in the early stages of the business. I had the liberty to start something new and it worked out. But due to some financial problems, I had to switch jobs to a manufacturing plant where I worked as a technician because of the lack of engineering job opportunities here in Kuwait. At my job, I learned about manufacturing and want to pursue it. Does being a technician from a family business employee affect my background? So great question. Thanks for telling me your story. So absolutely. So working in the family business and having that liberty to be able to do something new is really exciting because that means that you get to pitch your ideas and you get to believe in yourself. And so you could even say that it made you more intrapreneurial. So like as an employee in another company, you're wanting to start new things and do new things, and you have the confidence to bring the research forward and be able to pitch your idea to the company. And maybe that's not you. So, it just depends on, what you're wanting to do. But I think that you absolutely can use that background of growing up in a family business and the success that you had and how that's led to your success in your newer jobs that you've held since then and where you're going in the future. So it absolutely does impact it and in a good way. Okay. All right, next. Big Mike. What does Chicago Booth look for in comparison to Stanford, HBS, Yale, and Kellogg? So this is a little bit of a different conversation or presentation, but like each one of these schools has their own personality, and you need to be able to find the parallels and the intersections for these schools to be able to tell your story and how you stand out. So like if we were to take Chicago Booth, for instance, they're really committed to academics, right? Like their candidates typically have a high academic background. It doesn't mean that you have to have the highest GMAT GRE score or the highest GPA, but you're an academically minded person. You want to know how things work. You want to understand something. And that kind of also feeds into their create your own adventure curriculum. So, you have the knowledge to understand the industry you want to go into, and you are able to decide what classes you need to get to that next point. And that's what you need to be able to demonstrate to Chicago Booth. When we look at GSB is really interested in impact and what impact you can make in business. And so looking at their essays, like what matters most to you, that's what they want to know. They want to know who you are, what makes you tick. And yes, they do want to know your career goals and they want to make sure that it aligns with them, but they really want to see that passion. So, a little bit different from the way you would present your information to Booth with the way you would present it to Stanford. HBS is really leadership oriented. And so maybe your stories, instead of being maybe a little bit more collaborative when you talk to Stanford or Yale in your essays, or Kellogg, that might say like, through my team, I was able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. With HBS, I was able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. Right? Like, so it's a little bit of a different way of talking about what's happened and how you were able to be successful. And some schools are more team oriented, some are more individual leadership oriented. All of them emulate teamwork and experience, but some of them are looking more for that dedicated leadership versus maybe like teamwork. Okay, so we'll move on. And can you please clarify if HBX core without credits is helpful, or with credit is very expensive? Right. So with this being said, do the best that you can, right? Like if it's not within your financial means to do the HBX core for credit, that is okay. If it is something of concern to you, you can obviously reach out to the schools that you're interested in and ask this question. Right now, they're having tons of information sessions and it's easy. Like that question isn't like super, like very personalized, like where it's going to be a tangent for them. You can always ask them in an open, either coffee chat or in their presentation, and ask, like, if I were to take the HBX core, should I take it for credit or without credit? Is there any bias towards one or the other? And they will share. UC Berkeley extension courses, typically what they're going to want to do is to have you take, a lot of the times is, we're looking to back up our analytical and quantitative skills. And so taking the finance courses are going to be helpful for them. Okay. All right. So Big Mike, I think I answered your question. Kieran, we've already went through there. Nikhil, I've worked in corporate operations and sales, followed by 3 years in a family business. I aim to apply to top 20 B schools. Can an MBA help me transition from my family business to a corporate role like operations, supply chain, or consulting? Absolutely. So again, like it's all in how we put this story together. But essentially, being able to have your corporate experience, apply it to the family business, see how you are able to make a difference. Now makes you want to move back to corporate and see how you can make a difference, or move into consulting and see how you can help other small businesses grow. I mean, I think I would maybe take that angle. It depends on what the business is, all that kind of stuff. And again, we can talk about this offline, but there's definitely a way to pitch your experience in the family business and corporate world to show why you want to be in the next place that you want to be. Okay. Bobby, I'm mostly planning to apply to US schools, but I'm really intrigued by the IESC curriculum and HEC Paris's MBA as well. Is it going to be distracting and different for prepping for apps in the B schools in the US and Europe? Nope. That's perfect. I think that applying to a mix of schools is really helpful. They're a little bit different, but not dramatically different in a way that you're going to have to like have a completely different way of thinking for these schools. The biggest thing might be career outcomes and companies that you want to work for post MBA. Those are going to be the bigger parts, right? Like being able to tailor it to that school's employment report, location, that kind of stuff. That's going to be the only difference. And you really have to do that for almost any school that you're applying to. So US versus European, UK schools, not that big of a difference. You can definitely apply to them all in the same kind of cycle without any big issue. Okay, so let me move on just a little bit more with this presentation, and then I will get back to these questions. I think, RJ, you're next on my list. So beyond work experience, we can also talk about those extracurriculars. If you have a unique extracurricular, please share it in the comments. But being captain of a team, and I guess like this is like another thing, is that it doesn't have to be on a national level or an international level. Those are really cool things, but you can also demonstrate your leadership by talking about like, I organize a pickup soccer game every Sunday with my friends. And that shows your leadership skills. We have a lot of clients that are actually also marathon runners. I think that has to do some business school and marathon running, like have to go together somehow. I don't know. It's my own case study. But by, mentioning that you're a marathon runner or something, kind of similar, we can extrapolate that to coordinate with anything, right? Like a long distance skier or cross-country skier. I don't know. But so if we kind of pair this all together, like I'm seeing as a marathon runner that you have to plan things out. You have to be dedicated. You have to have discipline. You have to be organized. All of those skills I'm gleaning from this like 2-second, like 2-word thing on your resume, marathon runner. That's it. Like that gives me so much more to learn about you. We can also talk about personal achievements. Some people are Eagle Scouts. Other people have, like if they're a CPA or a chartered accountant, those types of things are also personal achievements that are no easy feat. Any sort of clubs or activities that are a little bit different. Archery, Rotary Club, I just kind of threw out a couple that our clients have. Any sort of passion project. So I've had a couple of clients that have found interesting ways to help like artisans be able to show their work and market it. A lot of the times that's through online innovation. And that a lot of that happened during COVID and the pandemic. And so being able to help artisans who maybe have this amazing ability to create something, but not necessarily the business skills. And so that's what these candidates did is they were able to make an online marketing space for people. It didn't necessarily bring them, much revenue or any revenue sometimes, but it was something that they were really excited about, exposed them to, almost like an entrepreneurial venture, something different, that they were designing a website, they were marketing, they were working with clients essentially, and being able to show that experience and putting in your application is another cool thing. Beyond that, hobbies can be another interesting way to talk about things. So we had a client who was really big into scuba diving, and like his like hobbies said that he has been scuba diving in 10 different countries or something like that. I had another client who said that they were on the quest for the best chicken wings in any place that they visit. Anything that kind of makes it unique. It can be maybe a little corny sometimes, but I think it, again, like shows your personality, intrigues the admissions committee, be like, oh, I want to know a little bit more about this person, because who mentions chicken wings on their resume, but who doesn't love a chicken wing, right? Okay, so we'll move on to talk about where you can stand out. Where can you share these things, these unique moments on your resume or in your application? So your resume is one of them. Again, like you have very limited room. For the most part, your resume should only be one page. When you're applying for a 2-year MBA program full-time, one page should be the max. Sometimes if you're applying to a 1-year or a senior MBA program, 2 pages. But be tactful. Some schools actually also have a requirement that it's only 1 page. So, we want to put that all together. So in the resume, you're using short, concise resume language, which means you don't always have to use articles like with any of those things. So you're trying really hard to communicate a lot in a little bit of a space. So you can do it in your bullet points. You can share it in so if you grew up in the family business, you can put it on your resume, even if it was like something that you did until you went to college, or while you were in college, you worked. Then, you can add it to the resume if there's enough room and it carries enough weight. If it doesn't, your essays are the better place to use it. So like if you have some really great work experience and you can't figure out how to include that family business experience of when you were really young, then putting in your essay of like growing up in a family business or growing up with a family business in the background, I always was thinking of ways to improve operations. And this really set me on my career path. 1 to 2 sentences tells them a lot about who you are and what you've kind of grown up in. And it didn't take space off your resume. The other things like the chicken wings and the scuba diving, they can be on your resume as hobbies, extracurriculars, leadership. That can kind of go there. If you have a career transition from, maybe you were in corporate and you moved into nonprofit, or you moved into small business or started your own business, sometimes extracurriculars can really help with explaining that story and that passion about how you got to that next stage. So, sometimes those can be related, and you might have like a small bullet on your resume, but then use the essay to really put it together. LORs are another great opportunity for your employers, bosses, previous managers to be able to talk about who you are and what you've done. So schools obviously don't want you to write your own letter of recommendation, but it doesn't say that you can't help your recommender, right? So oftentimes I encourage our candidates to try to take their recommender out to coffee, see if they have some time to sit down and chat and get to know you beyond just this silo of like work. Like I'd love to take you out to a cup of coffee and talk a bit about the letter of recommendation and share a little bit more about me and provide you with a bit more background. And so you can talk to them about your career progression, about what you were excited about in college and how that relates. And so this is a little bit of like, you want to find out what you're going to put into your application, what you're going to talk about in your essays before you prime your recommender for writing the letter, so that you can say like, okay, so this is kind of like what I'm pitching or what I'm sharing with the admissions committee. And here's a bit more so that you have this information to understand, how you want to talk about me in your letter of recommendation. The other place is your interview, right? Like, so you have the ability to really connect with somebody during an interview. And so you can share that experience. You want to learn how to talk about it. One of the first questions almost any interviewer is going to ask is, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume. And you can even say, actually, my work experience started before my resume even existed. I grew up in a family business and right? Like, you can talk about it that way. I know that I'm saying a lot about family business, but again, like, you can extrapolate how to use this for anything that you're excited about. So, like, as you can see on my resume, I have a strong background in operations. This actually started when I was a kid. I always was organizing the entire neighborhood for playing different games, and I organized different activities during the summer. You can kind of come up with ways to shape the impression that your interviewer is going to have about you. And so just a quick snippet at the beginning of the walk me through your resume or tell me about yourself, to give them a frame of mind of like, oh, this is an operations person. Oh, this person's really excited about education or ed tech, or anything like that. By giving them a little bit of like an intro to who you are, like a 2 sentence primer before you walk through your resume, can definitely make a huge impression with your interviewer and help them remember you in that specific way. All right, so now I'm ready for going back to our questions that we had during the session. But I'll leave this up here for everybody. But, we're here to help you. Aringo, we would love to help you with your applications. Happy to provide you with your own personal profile evaluation. The link is here. When we do post it, I'll have Selby or GMAT Club include that link so you can just click on it as well. But feel free to email me, anything like that, and we can always chat. Okay, so I'm going to answer some questions. RJ, I have an MBA in finance and around 14 years of experience in infrastructure project finance, and I want to get an MBA with energy and sustainability as the focus area. I'm 40 plus. Does my age and experience, is it an impediment to entry to a full-time MBA program? So RJ, it is not an impediment to an MBA program, but it's an entryway into specific programs. So there are a handful of programs that are created for seasoned candidates and that are full-time. So there's MIT Sloan Fellows, there's LBS Sloan Fellows, and then there's the Stanford MSX program. Those are kind of like the M7 or like top ranked MBA programs that have kind of this full-time senior program, and they're full-time. They do take you out of the workspace. Some people are sponsored when they go into it. Some of them are not. Some of them are entrepreneurs. It's a good mix. There's also going to be the Foster Global EMBA program, the University of Southern California Marshall IBEAR or International MBA program. Another one is RSM in in the Netherlands. There's a couple of different schools that are geared towards candidates with more years of work experience so that you're really getting the right parts of the MBA and at the right level for you. Almost like an executive MBA, right? Like, you want it to be a little bit differently focused than learning the basics of accounting and finance. So these programs are 1 year full-time. they are going to be at a higher level of understanding, not necessarily the nitty gritty. And they all have career counseling as part of the program, some more than others. The last couple that I mentioned, the Foster Global MBA, USC iBear, and RSM, Rotterdam School of Management. Those three schools specifically are going to have career services as a part of the program. MIT, Stanford, and LBS, those programs are a little bit more geared towards entrepreneurship, sponsored candidates. So they do have it, but it's not a major focus of the entire program. Not everybody's going through that process. There are one-year MBA programs. I would say that you probably are still on the high end for one-year MBA programs that are just like Kellogg. They have a one-year program in addition to their two-year program. And that's, for people who maybe already have a master's degree, but like 14 years of experience might put you too far ahead of the curve for being in that class and being able to really get something out of it. So I would look into those specialized, seasoned professional programs. And I know it feels so silly to say this, but I'm part of this club too. So you can always search for MBA over 40 and find these schools really easily in an internet search. We have a whole tab dedicated to it on our page, and happy to talk to you offline about it as well. All right. Next. All right, Kieran, while choosing your college, does MBA specialization and location matter? For example, I want to specialize in operations management. Should I look for universities that are located in industrial cities? Ooh, fantastic question. So I would say that absolutely location matters. And I don't necessarily mean that you have to be in an industrial area to go into operations. If it's something that you're really excited about, I have candidates that are really interested in automated or autonomous vehicles and EV vehicles or electric vehicles. Sorry. And so for them, I would recommend maybe potentially going to Ross or to one of the schools in LA or Silicon Valley, because that's where a lot of that is. So, that could definitely be an option, but you don't have to. But the important part about location is, where do you want to work and live after you graduate? And so for the US, state by state doesn't exactly matter as much. East Coast versus West Coast, typically you can get a job anywhere in the US when you have a job, or no matter which school you went to, right? You can find a job within the US. But if you're I want to post MBA, I want to be in the US, then I wouldn't get a degree in the UK, vice versa, all of that as well. So that's where location could definitely come into play with your MBA and where you decide to study. Okay. But it doesn't have to be an operations area. If you're really excited about operations, definitely look into UCLA Anderson. They have an amazing program. Plus, if we're really talking about operations management and being in a place where that happens, is the Port of LA. Amazing. Or in Seattle, where they have another major port, where they're definitely looking at operations and logistics and everything like that. Okay. And Kruti, is mention of political opinions encouraged in applications? No. Period. They can definitely be something that, no matter who your application reader is, there could be unconscious bias. Unless it's something very specific to your career background. I've had candidates who, in the US, it's pretty common. Well, it's not super common, but it is, there's a lot of people who maybe interned in the government or in a specific office, or volunteered on a campaign, or were a page, or work legislatively. And obviously anybody within government on those kind of levels typically has some sort of political affiliation. I would just note that, if there is a political affiliation with somebody on your resume or application or your story, that there may be an opportunity for somebody to draw a parallel between you and that person or that party. So, if it's something that's polarizing, I wouldn't necessarily bring it up unless if you have a very specific situation, please, let's set up a time and talk about it, because it could work. It's just, how do you address it and how do you not alienate people who maybe have different opinions than what you might have? And right now there's a lot of polarizing things going on college campuses. So, treading lightly, because you can see there's a lot of turmoil and a lot going on right now. So let's talk about it offline and figure out what you want to do and how to do it. Michael, excuse me once again, I would like to know if all MBA programs full funded or self-funded. If it happens, you get it. Okay. So I think this is a question about which programs typically are fully funded. I would say that the days of getting a fully funded MBA are far and few. Back maybe 5-10 years ago, maybe. I used to work for Arizona State WP Carey, and they actually had a fully funded MBA program for, I think, 4 years. It was amazing, Ford Focus MBA. But I think that, that's kind of been phased out. And what schools are trying to do is disperse the scholarship amongst as many people as possible, so that everybody is getting some help with the cost of tuition. So you won't see some of those, as many people get full rides, because it's not about like these 10 people having a tremendous amount of help and attracting them to stay in the program. It's more of, how do we help everyone and how do we provide merit for different profiles and who we want to attract. So, some schools will have assistantships that you can apply for. You're usually considered for scholarship at the time of application and would be awarded it with your admission or shortly, like 2 weeks after, because they usually want you to make your deposit within 2 to 4 weeks of getting admitted. Sometimes it can be just a little bit longer, but for the most part, they want you to have all the information up front so that you commit and attend the program and make your deposit and attend. So, they try to give you your scholarship up front. Some of them have additional scholarships that you can apply for after you're admitted. And then there are also external scholarships that you can look for helping to fund your MBA. And some of that is definitely based on specialized skills, personalized backgrounds, like that kind of stuff, almost like what we're talking about with the MBA application. Okay, so let's see. Hi, Nikhil. Nice to see you. Kieran. Okay. I think that those are all of our questions. We have just a few more minutes before we wrap up, but, get your questions in before we leave. But, my information is here. My goal is to make sure you have as much information as you need to make the best application that you can. I would love to help you with your application with Aringo, and we have consultants who have been working within the industry for 10, 15, 20 years. And so we have a lot of knowledge and can definitely help you with crafting the best application for each one of the schools on your list. All right. So from here, I just want to say thanks again for joining. Please like the YouTube channel, share this presentation with your friends, and come back for more later. Again, hope you have a great day and best of luck this season. And I think that is all for today. Look forward to meeting all of you individually later.